Yeah, I'm just gonna do it. There's no point in even pretending. Now hold up. Stop right there. If you're feeling this way and you just recently finished your favorite show, don't worry, you're not alone. And honestly, frankly, I feel like this right now. It's fine, I'm fine. I'm not fine, but I'm gonna pretend I'm fine. So if you have found this video, you're searching this topic, I'm sure you have seen the countless number of other videos that are talking about it. So I'm not going to give you the going through your stages, going through the grief and stuff, but rather kind of talk about why we feel this way and why it is that shows will just absolutely ruin us as human beings and take our hearts in their palms and crush them until there is nothing left except dust. Now, the show that has recently done this to me is actually Toradora, and Toradora is not like a super unknown anime. It's actually number 22 popularity, rated an 8.09 on my anime list. Pretty darn solid numbers, especially for a show that came out from 2008 to 2009. But that would probably be why a lot of you might not have even heard of it, and if you haven't seen it, please go watch it because I want to understand that other people are feeling the same pain that I'm feeling right now. Now, to get off that train before I get too in-depth, because I could probably make a whole video on my own reviewing and talking about Toradora and everything it does right and all that good stuff, talking about post-anime depression specifically, it'll hit you pretty much no matter what you're watching. I use that specifically as an example because for those of you that have seen it, you understand that the ending might be what you wanted, might not be what you wanted. It's conflicting, and it really makes you think about things. But even shows with something like Naruto, for an example, which, if you didn't notice, I'm a pretty big Naruto head myself. And while that show doesn't end in a disappointing manner, and you actually realistically get exactly what you would have wanted more than likely as a typical viewer of the show, you're still left with something. You're still left with that piece of you missing, knowing, hey, I can't watch any more of this. This is it. It's done. It's over. I can't get this back. That can't get this back feeling is exactly what drives this post-anime depression feeling that we all get. Now, I have a few theories of my own as to why this happens. I believe more in the anime genre than it does in most other mediums. For example, tons of people love Breaking Bad, right? When that first came out, had tons of viewers, tons of people loved it. It was absolutely wonderful, just great show, right? But after you finish it, you don't have this sense of, I want more. You don't have this sense of wow, that's it, I'm done. There's no more to go along with this story. And I genuinely believe a lot of that has to do with the fact that, well, it's real people versus these not real people. And let me go in depth as to what I mean by that. Whenever you're watching an anime, at the end of the day, it is a form of cartoon, right? It's an animated series where the writers can do whatever they want with it. These characters that you love and are really attached to can have as many adventures as the writers allow. I mean, it can just keep going. They could never age. Look at Ash Ketchum going for years and years and years, never aging a single time. Just recently, finally actually winning his first Pokemon championship or whatever the hell, right? Whereas in these realistic worlds, they age. The actors age. The story progresses typically on a much more linear timeline than something like an anime would. So in my head canon, if you want to put it that way, it makes a lot more sense. And I feel like our brains as humans can turn off and kind of go, okay, this show is over. It has followed its progression to the end. This realistic thing has disappeared and gone, and that's okay. I think a similar thing also happens in books. And while I'm not a super avid reader, I know it's very common in a lot of the book community where they finish that series they love or whatever it may be, and you just feel something missing because you've become so attached to these characters that feel like they have so much more possibility. They feel like there's so much that you can still do and still learn from them and still experience with them. So, all that being said, you might be asking, well, yeah, sure, great. I came to a lot of those conclusions myself. What's the point? Well, the point of this video is to tell you it's okay. You're not the only one feeling this pain, I promise you. And I want to talk about a few ways that I personally have gotten over this post-anime depression. For starters, I highly recommend finding some kind of group. And this is a recommendation in a lot of other videos that talk about post-anime depression, but I think this is one of the biggest ones that can really help you. If you have people that you know that have also watched it, you can sit there and talk to them about it, about your favorite moments, or what made it great, or what made it not so great at certain parts, or things of that nature. Just simply talking about it as if it is, not over, can sometimes kind of help alleviate some of that pain, because you still get to express the feelings that you have for it. Now, another idea that you can do, and one that I also see recommended quite a lot, is watching another show and moving on to that next thing. And while I think this is a good idea, you want to be careful for a couple of very specific reasons. For starters, I would highly recommend picking something that is not in the same genre of whatever that show is that gave you your post-anime depression. The reason being is either one, you're just going to compare it super heavily to whatever it is that you just watched and just finished, which typically isn't a good thing because you're going to feel one of two ways. Either one, you're going to feel like it's way worse and just doesn't hold up to this show that you finished because you've been through the whole thing, or two, maybe you feel like it's equivalent and or even better, in which case you now kind of will end up with double post-anime depression, especially if it's a short series, because it's not going to take your mind away from the original problem, but really just build on top of it. And the second and final reason to be careful is be very careful about what type of anime you're picking. Not just genre, but also what you're looking to do. In the sense of, if you pick a really short, let's say 8 to 12 episode, really heavy anime, that's going to be a lot on your mental. And as humans, we can only process and handle so many emotions before it becomes a problem, alright? It's just how we're made and it's just how we're built. So you don't want to go from having this post-anime depression feeling to hopping into this really sad, emotionally driven, very powerful show that is then only going to push you farther in that hole of, man, what is the real world? What's the point? Funnily enough, for the last thing that I would recommend, it actually basically 100% contradicts point 2, and that's give anime a short break. And the reason I say this is a lot of anime is pretty powerful, especially if you're really sucked into it, right? If you are full weeb and you are into it and you just love and enjoy almost any anime you watch, even the not so great ones, try holding off for even a few days. I'm not saying to stop watching for a whole month or something like that, but give it a few days. Let that show that you just finished really sink in, and then start up something new. And this is going to depend on what kind of person you are. Sometimes you're the person that can kind of forgive and forget and let go of a show pretty easily, in which case you're going to want to hop to that next show. Whereas if you know yourself and you know you're going to be sitting on this feeling for a little bit, that's when I would recommend this idea rather than the other one, because it gives you a chance to process what you're feeling and process what you're thinking. For this video, I am assuming I'm going to be getting quite an interesting range of audiences, where some of you might be feeling this feeling for the first time, or maybe some of you are feeling it again and you're just trying to find ways to help cope and deal with it. And for those of you that are maybe a little more new to the feeling, just be aware this probably isn't the last time you're going to feel it, even for that specific show. One thing I didn't really mention in the beginning, because I wanted to make this point now, is I actually finished watching Toradora like 3 to 4 months ago. And I had pretty rough post-anime depression after finishing it. Got over it. I've been watching some stuff, enjoying it, and I was trying to think about what I want to start and things like that, and it hit me again, and I was just thinking about the show. So don't be worried or concerned when this feeling that you have right now seems like it went away and magically hits you again later down the road. It's not you being a crazy person, it's just you really having a passion for whatever that thing is that you consumed. As for post-anime depression, that's about all I have to say. If you really like this content, this type of video, go ahead and subscribe down below. I post some D&D and anime stuff on this channel. And hey, if you got any questions for me, drop them down in the comments. I respond to what I can. I would love to hear about what shows have given y'all post-anime depression, because while the feeling's not great, it really does mean that you love the show. So I would absolutely love some more recommendations that are going to crush my soul, because frankly, sometimes that's just what I need. But nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoyed. Hopefully this helps some of y'all work through your PADS yourself, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.